Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And we are two parts of a whole that is the Jedi Enclave presents the Now This Is Podcasting podcast, which today is happening at on the right day at the right time, which is usually,
ostensibly our regular time.
Yeah, which is ordinarily Wednesdays at 6. And I think this works out this week because we didn't see any movies this week, which is great. But you know, it's our weekly live show about Star Wars and the MCU and
Star Wars accessories.
Things that we enjoy really is the main part of it. And we're talking about a bunch of shit today. But before we get any further, thank you to Connor at the Star Wars Hub and Star Wars Veritas, who's on Facebook. Go check him out there.
Two of the very few good Star Wars fan pages on the internet.
True. And then we got Star Wars news today. Marvel Secret Invasion had their
series finale.
I think they're not doing another one, I don't think. And so that worked out really well. Well, it didn't. I don't know. We'll talk about it. I have feelings about it, but we got some Star Wars things to talk about. While you're here, make sure you like and subscribe, share.
Just press all the buttons.
Yeah, wherever it's acceptable, wherever you feel like doing it. And then the link to our Discord is in the description of this video. And we're live on our voice channel, so you can go and check that out there. And if you're watching this in podcast form, the time codes for each of our things will be in the description. So if you don't feel like listening to us talk about anything else other than the thing you're here for, I can't tell you what to do. Go and do that.
We're not your dads.
Yeah. And nor do we want to be, frankly.
No.
So also we started a little late today, so we are going to get rolling on this. After this, we have Battlefront 2. Mm-hmm. One of the boys from Gremlin Squad. So, in fact, we were just talking about in our group chat about how, like, Starfield's coming out in September. And I remember that's something I'm going to be playing on our channel, which I'm actually very much looking forward to. Probably take a break from Battlefront for a week or two. So let's talk about some dead Jedi.
Okay.
Isn't that a good thing to talk about?
Cheerful way to start.
So a while ago, we've all seen the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, right? Then this will be spoilers if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, at least by this point, you probably don't care to see it, which is, that's your problem, not my problem. But it, the whole story is Obi-Wan, dejected, not knowing what to do, goes on a little mini adventure with the
little baby Leia.
Yeah, little baby Leia, who gets promptly kidnapped by Inquisitors. Mm-hmm. And so Obi-Wan's like, okay, well, I'll go and rescue her from
Let's go to the fucking Fortress Inquisitorius or whatever the fuck. And
while he is going through with his friend Vera,
something like that.
Yeah,
he's creeping through the fortress basement, and holy shit, there's a bunch of dead Jedi.
Yeah, and he's there with what's her name from Game of Thrones. But there's like a weird vault full of dead Jedi, right?
Mm-hmm. Just sort of preserved in amber.
Right. Now, there were rumors before now that like they're all held in stasis, that they weren't actually dead. So first of all, Star Wars: Dawn of the Rebellion, the visual guide, has confirmed, first of all, that they are dead.
Okay.
They're not just sleeping peacefully and being fed cookies and milk. They are very, very dead, which also means that in a Disney Plus show, in a franchise made for kids, they had a dead child.
Oh.
Which is a little dark.
Just a little.
Yeah. But we learned a little bit about those identities, right? So the kid apparently was a youngling called Ferris.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is not Ferris Olin, who, if you've read the Jedi Quest series, which is like a spin-off of the Jedi Apprentice series by Jude Watson, he's like a rival of Obi-Wan's when he's like a younger Jedi Knight and everything. Not him, spelled differently. Also, he lived to be like a middle-aged man, so it wouldn't be him. I did some research on it, couldn't find anything. He's not like the kid that's like, Master Skywalker, what are you going to do? Because he wasn't wearing a hat, like one of those like training hats. Yeah. He's just a dead youngling. Poor kid. The one that everyone who really likes the Clone Wars recognized was Terrace Anube. And while we knew this, having it confirmed is kind of like, and knowing for sure that that's him, that's like on the books now. He's a Kazian male from Clone Wars. In fact, he goes on a little adventure with Ahsoka. She loses her lightsaber. she's like, oh no, I lost it. And he's like, I guess we'll go find it.
I guess we'll have to go find it.
Yeah, and they go on a little thing. His lightsaber's in his like walking stick.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, and he's like real old. So actually, what's really funny about that is that someone steals her lightsaber and tries to fight Terra with it, and he disarms her within seconds. Someone's like, you idiot.
You fucking dumbass.
So he's dead. Sorry. And then one of the other identities that were confirmed was Valeri Tide. And we don't know close to nothing about her because I don't think that they really created anything about her other than just she's a lady in amber and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we know that she survived Order 66. She is found and killed on Athio 3. She tried to go off and make a life, which is like that's kind of what the Inquisitors did, right? Like you escape, like a bunch of Jedi escaped, went to try to have like their own lives elsewhere. The
Inquisitors were like, nope,
yeah,
you're not allowed to do that.
It's interesting reading into this actually because I just finished a couple days ago. Rise of the Red Blade, which is the newest Star Wars novel about a Jedi that ends up being an Inquisitor. And I had entirely forgotten that this character shows up in a comic months ago and is killed by Vader. And if I had known that going in, I would remember that this character is like they weren't going to live very long. But it was a really neat story. We'll probably talk about it at some point.
Okay.
I saw some people were like, hey, shouldn't we see Mace Windu somewhere in this tomb of dead Jedi?
No, because Mace Windu fell from a very tall window and splattered on some pavement, and what is left of him could probably fit in a jam jar.
Yeah. Also, I'm not really sure if I think the Inquisitors, those were all Jedi that the Inquisitors and Vader killed. I think I'm not really sure if also, our live stream feed is all messed up because I misaligned the cameras.
Ah, well.
And that's okay for today. It doesn't really matter because the live stream is just for you guys. The videos are, elsewhere. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that, Palpatine killed...
yes, he killed Mace
Yeah,
Windu.
and they're probably like, sir, do you want to preserve this guy in amber? And he's like, no. Why would I do that?
Fuck that guy.
I really do not care. So let me go through some chats here. Travis says, hope you're all well. While Anakin wasn't the best Jedi, he was arguably the most powerful. While everyone else underwent trials to become one with the Force, he passes them all through death.
You're way ahead of us. Just
hold
that thought.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Becoming one with the Force instantly. That's a weird, actually. This has become. I've called it Anakin Gate because it was. We'll talk about it in a bit, but I appreciate the chat there. And then I need to be able. This is not the most efficient way to do chats, and unfortunately, there's not really a better way to do it. And then put on top of that the problem that I can barely read them. Sorry, Steven. Super Skull fight was awesome. I don't know if I agree with that.
We'll get there.
And And Disney Origins is shrouded in dark. They stole the Brother Grimm. So first of all, Walt Disney was a terrible fucking person, and it wouldn't surprise me if he had killed, a bunch of black people or something, because he was, as this person, as Stephen points out, was very racist, very homophobic, also very anti-Semitic. Chris says, may the Force be with you, Jedi Enclave. Thank you, Daniel and Chris, for your awesome videos and all the positivity you both bring to Star Wars. It's funny because sometimes we can be decidedly not very positive about things, but I try to keep a fair.
We try to be negative and positive ways.
Yeah, I try to be fair. I try not to I try not to put out stuff that I know will just get people I don't say anything that I don't actually think, which is more than some other YouTubers that we know can say, right? Do you know /think Ahsoka series will make or break Disney Star Wars? Oh, by the way, that whole Ahsoka thing is kind of interesting because I saw Star Wars Theory put out a video that said that if Ahsoka bombs, that he's done with Star Wars. He's walking away from Star Wars.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, and it's like you are nothing without Star Wars.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, your entire thing, your entire way of making money is predicated on a property that doesn't belong to you. And literally no one cares about you if you're not talking about Star Wars. And honestly, we'd all be better off without you, given how fucking shitty you are. So, and then Jimmy says, can we talk about how Ki-Adi-Mundi did a war crime in season 2? Would not surprise me. Because honestly, the Jedi were kind of dicks. Another thing they kind of put into the Rise of the Red Blade, like not great.
Yeah.
Using a flamethrower. Geonosians aren't people.
You can't just say that.
They're like termites, like big termites. I'm sorry.
I'm going to talk about Star Wars before you get us canceled.
Yeah. Let's talk about some Star Wars Outlaws.
So IGN had an interview with a couple of Star Wars Outlaws developers from Ubisoft and one from Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Talking about, like, I believe this is the world we saw in that gameplay reveal way back in the summer.
Yeah.
Toshara, which is something they made from scratch with input from Lucasfilm. It talked about the main character, what's her name? Kay's speeder bike and how it's explicitly not a swoop, but they made it so that like you could get around these huge open areas they're putting into the game, and
it's kind of like a Hogwarts Legacy. You can do you can like have your broom or your hippogriff, or you can do a thestral. I think, right? I think so.
Sounds real.
Yeah. Well, the dead things, the things you can't see unless you've seen death or whatever. Yeah.
Apparently they built a real one for Comic-Con, like a real scale model of the speeder bike.
Oh, I think I saw pictures of that. Yeah.
It's saying that you'll be able to like personalize and customize your speeder bike and your ship, which is always exciting.
Also, like kind of standard fare for open world games too.
Yeah.
They'll probably microtransaction the shit out of that.
So the Lucasfilm guy actually mentioned that whenever they build something in Star Wars, they have a formula where they want it to be like 80% familiar and then 20% like new alien weird stuff, which makes a lot of sense when you consider like a lot of Star Wars, I suppose. Just like the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy spend a lot of this time like filming on location in places that look and feel real, and then just have some fantastical elements added to them.
Right.
And like the prequel trilogy is a little bit less so because they were so fascinated with CG at the moment. But even then, things looked like it could be conceivably something that a human could encounter on Earth.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? So they're talking about the time period being between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi being a time where there's a lot of opportunity for a scoundrel thief. Yeah.
Also, the storytelling that's kind of it's a part of the Star Wars era that isn't very developed. That like the exception being the Marvel Star Wars comics kind of take place in that time period, but otherwise, like I don't know if they thought that people didn't care about stuff in between those two movies or whatever.
Theory about that.
Okay.
When you come to Star Wars, the first thing you think about is like the Jedi and the Force and lightsabers, and there's decided lack of all that stuff in this time period.
I think it's because most people really love Han Solo and he's frozen in carbonate.
Could also be, yeah. But that sort of adds another thought I have. So within the entire greater Star Wars universe, it's very easy to imagine that there are probably more like scoundrel type people running around than there ever were Jedi, and yet there's very little Star Wars media that actually pays attention to them.
Yeah, well, because they're kind of hard. They're kind of hard heroes to have, especially when you consider like if you have a scoundrel character, you're gonna be like, oh, it's the Han Solo character, which is like who wants another Han Solo character when you can just write Han Solo in,
I suppose that's true.
Though when you
worked for Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, that was too
where
like
Dash Rendar was literally just Han Solo.
That really was like an intense, like barely legally distinct from Han Solo.
Yeah. Ubisoft talked about how they're working with Lucasfilm to try and get like existing characters and existing worlds into their game and have it all make sense and look authentic. And apparently you're gonna have spend some quality time with Jabba the Hutt in the game.
Yeah, I was reading about that too.
Which might be fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and because we were talking last week about how like there's like a system where you like depending on who you fuck over, you can make certain people mad. You can like betray Jabba the Hutt, which is I think the closest we've gotten to this in video games was Battlefront 2015, where they had a level up system that were Hutt contracts, where like Jabba would give you a contract and you would fulfill it, and it just had achievements on it, like shove 10 thermal detonators up someone's ass and then you get like a gun or something. So it's like the closest we've had to Jabba being in a video game, which I think is kind of neat. That actually could be pretty cool. It's also reading about how they were talking about how they're like Star Wars Outlaws isn't going to be like an unmanageable 300-hour unfinishable game, right? And I saw that and I was like at first I was like, okay, that's so there are elements about open world games that are just kind of like this is in every open world game and it just feels like busy work. And at the same time, that the line that they gave just sounded like this isn't going to be as long as you think it is, so we're going to find a way to spin that and so that it doesn't seem too short. So I'm hoping that they actually find a good medium there, that it doesn't feel like a really short game, but also like in Batman Arkham Origins, the or any of the Batman games, like collecting Riddler trophies, like in Arkham Knight, there were like 300 something Riddler trophies to collect, and it was like, and I did it. Why the fuck did I do it? I don't know. Because
you got to be Batman for slightly longer.
Yeah, but really, it's like this is just busy work. Like this is just stupid bullshit. So
what open world games do at their very best is they provide a lot of different ways to go between points and a lot of fun things to just stumble upon.
Yeah.
Like if you have a quest that takes you from point A to point B, there are like multiple different routes to get there. And I might take one route and encounter one situation. You might go another and find something else. And we played the same game. We did the same mission, but we encountered all these different things on the way just based on which direction we went to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm always very wary about open world games because I can't remember exactly what game it was, but like some open world game did really well, and then after that, everyone was making games. Like everyone had a game that was open world, and a lot of them just shouldn't have been. Yeah. Like they weren't like big enough to actually be open world games, and it's just kind of like, oh Jesus Christ.
They talked a little bit about the ship combat and how it's going to be a little bit more arcadey rather than the simulation, which is fine.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Right. I love space simulators. I spend a lot of time playing Elite Dangerous. That shit, I just fucking love that. However, that is one of the reasons why not a lot of people got into Star Wars Squadrons, because that is kind of like a legit flight simulator. And it's the learning curve is pretty steep. It's not very approachable by players, and as a result, on day one, there weren't a lot of people playing multiplayer in Star Wars Squadrons, which kind of sucked. I would have invested more time in it if it had a more active multiplayer thing. And I kind of guess it would be like an arcade ship combat system, based on how it looked in the gameplay trailer, because it looks just like Starfighter Assault from Battlefront 2. Yeah. So down to like the icons on the side that showed you like how much your thrust is and shit. So I'm sure that they probably cannibalized something from because I think Respawn did the flight side of Battlefront, so they probably took something out of that.
Well, they did say, Ubisoft, that they did everything in house. They weren't looking at what anyone else was doing, so you can believe that as much as you want.
I don't know if I believe that.
They also specifically seem to shoot down any possibility that Kay is going to end up being a Jedi or get a lightsaber, because that's the first thing anyone thinks whenever a Star Wars game comes up. Like, can you be a Jedi?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really thought that was a realistic expectation.
I didn't either, but some people must have, and they just basically say no. Like if she got a lightsaber, she would just try to sell it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense with
or would try to use it and kill herself, probably, because they're very dangerous.
Seems a little smarter than that. So they close out the interview. The guy from IGN asks, "Do you have a message for fans who have been negative about Outlaws having a woman as a protagonist?" And unfortunately, the Ubisoft guy kind of gave kind of a nothing
Milk
answer,
toast,
saying, we're really proud of the story we've crafting. The actress playing Kay is doing a great job, and we think you're all going to love it. When he really should have said, if you have a problem with a female protagonist, that says more about you than it does about the game.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck over yourselves.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But I mean, you kind of have to give corporate speak in these interviews,
right? You don't want
you don't want to offend the bigots.
Yeah, you don't want Star Wars Theory making a video about how the game designer give a slap in the face. Yeah, like
blah, blah,
right,
blah.
and it's a big slap in the face to fans and all that other bullshit. Yeah. Steven says, in a world of Barbie, be an Alan. Alan who? Or is that Alien? I can't tell. It's way too fucking small. I can't tell.
I don't know.
Jimmy says Star Wars Bounty Hunter is an awesome and perfect example of Star Wars game that doesn't have a Jedi character, and the playable character you play is Jango Fett, and that worked out just fine. Yeah, I've only played a little bit of that game, but and it's not the only one. Like there must be some other Star Wars game that isn't like Jedi.
I mean, Shadows of the Empire, Dark Forces, Rogue Squadron back on the GameCube. Although I guess that's more of a ship thing than.
Yeah, I think technically you actually play as Luke Skywalker, so that.
Yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't count because you don't get out and like use a lightsaber and shit. Yeah, I think there's some pretty good examples. I think Shadows of the Empire might be like the most.
Republic Commando.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just a clone trooper in that game.
Oh, and I like how all the really good ones are. You're just like a regular soldier,
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
I realize all the
Star Wars Squadrons. Yeah.
Most of these games are very, very old.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about Dave Filoni's Anakin Gate.
Oh, good.
So this happened a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to put it on the show, but we were like way too busy with shit. We were like seeing movies and talking about them, and we didn't have the time to give this the attention that it deserved. But we're gonna go into this now, and this is the thing. Like, nerds like to argue about their favorite franchise characters and their power levels. This is not specific to Star Wars.
This is fucking Goku versus Superman, right?
It all over the place. Fucking Gandalf, versus
Dumbledore.
Yeah, actually, that'd be pretty cool. Or just within the franchise itself.
I don't think that's off topic.
Nerd. So like I understand the can of worms we're opening with this, and I just don't really give a fuck. This was a throwaway line that he gave in the Journey to Ahsoka hype reel from a couple weeks ago, where he's referred to Ahsoka. He wasn't even talking about Anakin. He was talking about Ahsoka. He's like, Ahsoka was
blah 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 blah, the student of the greatest Jedi to ever live.
Right, greatest Jedi of all time. Which, oh my god.
First off, he knew exactly what he was saying. He knew exactly what this was going to do.
Also, like, I'm sure that this is an opinion he has, that that's how he sees it.
Sure.
And I vehemently disagree. And I know that a lot of people will vehemently disagree with me, which is why this is kind of fun, because I'm right and you're wrong, of course. But we're going to talk about it a little bit. So this is, there are videos out there like, oh, Dave Filoni divided the Star Wars fan base, and it's like, no, he didn't. Just like, this is the nerdy shit that people like to talk about. They like to fight over. The cool thing to talk about is which character would win in a fight. What isn't fun to talk about is whether or not Star Wars is too woke, or your any given opinion on Rose Tico in The Last Jedi, which are things I just do not give a fuck about any day, anytime. Get off my fucking lawn, right? This shit, though, sign me up, and we will have these debates because I fucking love it. So, supporting evidence for Anakin being the greatest Jedi of all time. Chosen One prophecy, which misread could have been, as we know. Midi-chlorian count. In fact, I'm not aware of any Jedi that had a midi-chlorian, an M count higher than Anakin's, because they never addressed it again, because midi-chlorians generally was a bad idea anyway, and they're like, oh, people didn't like that, we're going to get away from that. He killed Darth Sidious, but not really.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Partially.
That is an entire other can of worms about that sacrifice and whether or not it was made. He killed Count Dooku.
Actually.
Yeah.
No,
he really died. Yeah.
He cut the fuck off his head.
And was a war hero. Mm-hmm. Was a great warrior, right? Here's some defeating evidence for him being the greatest Jedi. He lost a 1v1 with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan
arguably he lost 2. Like his record versus Obi-Wan is what?
What are you talking about?
1 loss, 2 loss in Obi-Wan, 3.
Oh, okay.
He's 1-3 versus Obi-Wan.
So when I refer to Anakin, I'm talking about pre-Darth Vader.
Okay.
Because
and
we'll get to why.
Pre-suit or pre-Vader?
Pre-suit.
Okay.
Being shoved in an oven.
Okay.
Yeah. So Obi-Wan beat him in a 1v1. Now Obi-Wan's a Jedi.
Yeah. And
if a Jedi beats you, you are not the greatest Jedi of all time.
Well, at that point he was
also a Sith. Right. Okay. Yeah. I get it. Also you have to ask the question, is your ability to win a fight, does that make you a better Jedi when we know?
Yoda would argue no.
Right. So this is so subjective. He fell to the dark side.
Okay.
Which I would expect that would disqualify you from being the greatest Jedi of all time. He murdered scores of children.
That was Darth Vader. That was after he was no longer a Jedi.
Okay. So he lost an arm to Count Dooku. Okay. I realized he killed him. However, they were even.
He's 1-1.
Yeah. And has the weakest romance game in the entire universe.
Weakest pullout game, certainly.
Yeah. So my argument, and by the way, if you're watching this, put your opinions. Maybe you think someone entirely different. Maybe you think
Keanu Bundy.
Yeah, one of those guys is. So in my opinion, probably Luke Skywalker. Okay. So in Legends, no contest.
Yeah.
Because of how ridiculously Luke is written.
Yeah.
I went and did some research today. I was like, okay, so what are some stories I remember about Luke Skywalker? He froze an entire room during a food fight.
Okay.
That's fun. His students started a food fight.
He's just like, no, cut that shit out.
Yeah, put a hand up. Everything froze. Everything in the room, all the people, everything just froze in midair. And he's like, stop it.
We don't do that here.
He single-handedly took down an ATST with his mind in Shadows of the Empire 2. He could walk on lava. Which is the thing. He just I can walk on lava now.
Fuck it, I want to walk here.
He was described by an enemy as a terrible maelstrom of light energy from which there was no escape.
Okay.
And so, brief addendum, a bunch of people will be like, and he moved a black hole with the Force. No, he did not. That is not true, and I don't know where this came from. I kind of do. There's a story where he uses the Force to escape a stellar phenomenon that was kind of like a black hole, but comparing it to a black hole is like comparing a little toy truck to a literal dump truck. And so he did move a black hole. He escaped from something that was a very, very weak black hole-esque stellar phenomenon. Okay. So if you're out there on fucking Reddit, he moved a black hole with the Force, he did not. That is not true. So in canon, he's still overwhelmingly dangerous, right? They rightfully, I believe, pull him back a little bit because in canon it just spirals into just absurdity, right? Because all the writers were different, and they had to keep escalating his power set and everything. And it's like, oh, he's got to do something cool now. He's got to do something cooler than the last time, and it just grows into this unbelievable. This isn't fun anymore. We get it. Luke is literally the god of this universe. However, in canon, still does some pretty crazy shit, right? You could point to any one of his ability to fight, his connection with the Force. I would argue that his ability to cut himself off from the Force was actually kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And because we know that it was really hard for him given how connected to the Force he was. And I don't care what you feel about Last Jedi. I'm just tired of talking about it. His thing at the end was insane.
Just astral project yourself across the entire galaxy.
Yeah, and it's he fooled a fucking droid. A droid was that's a living thing, and he's like, no,
nope.
I'm not. Now, I know that you might say, the whole Ben Solo thing is a point of contention, right?
Okay, sure.
Because if you believe Ben or Kylo, who is an unreliable narrator, he was going to murder him and he just barely escaped what honestly happened. And that's like, they saw that, everyone sees that scene and they're like, that's what literally happened. And it's like, no,
that's what Kylo thinks happened.
Yeah. What really happened was that he thought about it in very Luke fashion, very true to his character. Fucking impulsive as fuck Luke Skywalker was like, oh, I might do this. Like, this might be the best way to do it. And then was like, wait a second.
This is fucked up.
Yeah. Put Anakin in the same situation.
Anakin just fucking murders him.
Anakin looks down.
No hesitation. Blup.
Yeah. He's like, and I've saved the whole galaxy. You can thank me now, right?
Peace.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Now, the argument that I've heard about this is Anakin would have easily been the most powerful person in the galaxy if he hadn't turned to the dark side.
Okay.
But he did turn to the dark side. And
Yeah.
that, to me, is the one disqualifying thing where you cannot be the greatest Jedi that ever lived or that will ever live. Because Luke, in both canon and Legends, more so in Legends, suffered as much as Anakin. And he still didn't fall to the dark side.
Except for that one time he did.
Yeah.
During the first Palpatine clone saga.
Yeah, and this is a problem with these stories, is that they're like, okay, we have to get something that will get everyone's attention.
Oh my God, Luke fell to the dark side.
Right. And but then they lampshaded it. They're like, oh, he didn't really. He was just doing it to, get in and all that other bullshit. In canon, despite having good reasons, or at least reasons that Anakin would have been like, oh, I'm on the dark side now. Instead of doing that, exiled himself to protect the universe, which I think is, despite him hating being a Jedi and despite him thinking that it was all stupid, is like the most metal Jedi shit in the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thought on that. Okay. I think Luke Skywalker is probably, in my view, in both canon and Legends, the best Jedi that was. Certainly the most powerful, because he didn't melt in a lake of fire and then require a suit to keep him alive his entire life. That significantly reduced his ability to access the Force.
Don't forget that the whole melting in a lake of fire thing happened because of Anakin's own hubris.
Yeah, it's like that stick in the bike.
He's like,
meme.
Wait a minute, you have the high ground, huh? I can totally fight you. Oh no, I can't.
Yeah. So let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think? Off the top of your head.
Yeah, I'd go with Luke.
I think Mace Windu is a fun idea. But not really. I don't think has a lot to support. However, he was kind of a badass, and I like Sam Jackson a lot. So I'd be like, I get why you would think that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't offend me. Okay.
Speaking of Sam Jackson.
Oh yeah. So Marvel Secret Invasion episode 6 today. The finale, presumably, of the entire show.
Yep.
We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna spoil it. Before we get into this. I was disappointed by the end of this, and I knew that it was going to be 30 minutes, and I was like, if the next episode's 30 minutes, there's no way they've got enough time to wrap everything up and have it be satisfying. And while I did enjoy the show, and I would watch it again, the ending didn't stick for me, and at the end I was like, okay.
I was disappointed because the first 2 episodes were almost an hour long each, and then the next one was like 45, and then all the ones after it were about 30.
Yeah, and
it's like you've shown that you're willing to do episodes of a Marvel show to full hour length. Yeah. Why not just do the whole thing?
Yeah, I know why. It costs more money, and
they had a pretty big budget for this show. It was like over $200 million or something.
I understand that, and what they should have done with that kind of money would have been a film that was meant to put on Disney Plus. However, that does not drive subscribers. You must have something week to week, and so to serve that goal, they cut it up into weirdly sized things that it was harder to manage the story and everything. And I think that's really the part of it that really kind of irritates me, is that it was cut up to drive subscriber numbers for Disney Plus, which
What are you basing that on?
I mean, that's what they do for everything. That's the whole point of that's why they don't do the Netflix thing and put everything out in one go.
No, I mean, for this particular story, what are you basing your argument that it was cut up on?
Historical data. Literally all the other Disney Plus shows are the same way, and it just kind of seems like that's their template for doing all of their shows.
Because I know Obi-Wan was explicitly meant to be a movie or two, and it was cut up into episodes. But I'm not saying that originally, like in the early phases of development, that Secret Invasion was a movie. I'm just saying that they could have taken $200 million, put a movie on Disney Plus, but decided not to because it didn't. I don't think it was ever envisioned as a movie, though.
I don't think it was either. But I'm saying if you've got $200 million you're going to spend on something like this, make it into a movie so that it's easier to maintain a coherent story.
Okay.
And instead, just being like, oh, we're going to have these short little episodes. That way, week to week, people won't cancel their Disney Plus. Which is stupid because I don't pay for it anyway. So so for me, it really has no impact. Also, I really hated that at the end of this thing, it's just another fucking Marvel, two super powered people punching each other.
Do you honestly expect anything else from Marvel at this point?
Yeah, and this one isn't.
I mean, historical data.
Yeah,
what Marvel show hasn't ended like that?
I understand.
What Marvel movie
look,
hasn't ended?
I'm not saying I was super surprised. I was not surprised. And it was better than like Moon Knight, which are just big kaiju looking things slapping each other, right? Okay. All right, and a big laser beam in the sky, because there's always a laser beam in the sky in Marvel properties, right? And this one is a little more inventive than that. Yeah. And we'll talk about why. But I was like,
okay.
I get it. They're both strong and they punch each other. Like, what the fuck ever. Okay, so previously on Secret Invasion, we're spoiling this, by the way, if you've not seen it. It just came out today. Go watch it, come back. Let us know what you think in the comments as well. We're interested in hearing from you. Previously on, scrolls are everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're in your government. They're in your neighborhoods. They're under your beds.
Sometimes Sonya shoots one just to prove that it's a scroll.
Yeah. Rebels, so like this rebel cell scrolls are pissed because Nick Fury and Carol Danvers didn't find a home, and now they got to make Earth their home and kill the humans, right? Yep. They need the harvest, which is a bunch of DNA to make them into super scrolls with superpowers. So we open in a dark alley, which is like where Nick Fury likes to live. He's like, ooh, that looks good for me, dark alley. And he's like making a phone call to his honey.
He likes dark alleys more than he likes his wife's house, apparently.
Yeah, what a weird relationship, by the way. We'll get to that by the end. So his wife Priscilla answers and is like, well, shit, you haven't called this number in years. And he's like, well, listen, I've actually dialed it like 1 million times, but I never hit send because I'm old and I can't figure out how cell phones work. And I just learned how to make a call on this fucking thing. And she's like, okay, well, that explains everything. You sound really far away. And he says a really interesting line that I really liked. This is one thing I liked about this show a lot. I think the dialogue writing is really good.
I love this conversation because there's layers of meaning, just like there is in
it's
a real
always,
relationship between people who know each other for years.
It's always, and you can tell with them even more, it's always a game to figure out what the other one means because of who they are, right? And it, like, I totally get that. So he says, yeah, I'm far enough where it makes sense to keep going the way that I'm going. And like, she's like, okay, so we're doing the cryptic thing. Are you coming back home? And he's like, I'll just let you go. And she's like, here's an idea. You could not. And he's like, I'm Nick motherfucking Fury. Take care of yourself. Bye, bitch. Hangs up, right? And she's got this look, like she hangs up and she's like, okay, how do I decode that? What does he want me to do? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So there's an armed gate at New Skrullos, which is in Russia. It's one of the abandoned nuclear power plants, right?
We saw this in episode 1 when Beto drives up.
Right.
It's the same 2 guards.
Right. So a car approaches real fucking slow. It doesn't stop when it's ordered to, and so I like that they have like a little procedure.
Yeah. They're like, hey,
they tell them to stop. Doesn't stop. They do the warning shot.
Shoot in the air.
And they're like,
stop. All right, well, we're shooting you.
You're fucking killing that guy. So doesn't stop when it's ordered. They open fire, but the car's empty, right? And they're like, what the fuck?
Okay.
And so they go and investigate, and they just get shot. And you're like, okay. So here's Nick Fury, right? They both get capped, which, by the way, if you're going to get capped by Nick Fury. It's pretty fucking cool. And he like looks around and he's like, okay, well, that was kind of easy.
I like how like the two Skrulls are lying down on the ground. Nick Fury walks out of the woods, just shoots one just to make sure.
Double tap. So at a random hospital in Europe where the president of the United States is recovering from
presumably in England.
Yeah.
But
he's recovering from the assassination attempt. And Rhodey's there with him. And he's like, okay, I need you to focus on the puppet work I've given you. We need to bomb Russia and start an international scene. And there's a member of the military there, like maybe part of the Joint Chiefs or something.
He calls her Admiral.
She'd be in the Navy, I think. And she's like, yeah, so we're not sure they were Russians. And Rhodey's like, what the fuck? Why? And she's like, because they kept running around screaming, we're Russians, look at us, we're Russians. And Rhodey's like,
that seems kind of suspicious.
Yeah, and Rhodey's like, yeah, because they're Russians. And she's like, I mean, they were screaming it in English. So, also, the Russian president has strenuously denied it was them, and you don't strenuously deny anything if you don't mean business.
True.
And Rhodey's like, so, if you can't trust a Russian president, who can you trust? Is that really the argument you're making right now? And she's like, yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think it was a false flag attack, and not like the Alex Jones kind. Actually, probably the Alex Jones kind, because they are reptilian-looking aliens, and I'm sure at least one or two of them are gay. Fuck, was Alex Jones right all along? And he's like, okay, look, your job is to present options to the president for retaliation. And she's like, what exactly is your job again? Because no one knows. And he's like, it's very ill-defined.
My job is to tell the president what to do.
Yeah, it's very ill-defined and unbelievably flexible. For example, in this moment, I'm the Secretary of Defense, I think. Here's a video of Russia mobilizing troops. Now I'm going to be the White House communications director. Here's a statement I drafted for the president. Please start bombing Russia, for fuck's sake. So at New Scrollos, Fury is stumbling through this abandoned Russian nuclear thing. And apparently the radiation is like getting to him, right?
He's coughing and
wheezing and falling over and shit. He's popping iodide pills, and he just stumbles his way, right? Meanwhile, Rhodey gets a phone call from Sonia Falsworth. And she's like, you need to get him out of there. And Rhodey's like, what? Who? And he's like, who the fuck do you think? The president of the United States. Like, literally the only patient in this whole fucking hospital.
Because you kicked everyone else out.
Jesus fucking Christ, Americans are stupid. And he's like, okay, I'll bite. Why? And she's like, well, Fury is coming for you. And he's like, I mean, we have enough security here to deal with him. And she's like, yeah, he's on a rampage. Like, he's going to kill literally all of you and your families. So get moving. And there's like you see this realization. Brody's like, oh, he might be mad. Like, we better get out of here.
He might actually be coming.
There's this great shot of Falsworth like looking like through the door window.
Yeah,
like, oh, that worked. Yeah.
The hospital.
Which, by the way, you and I watched an episode of The Bear the other night, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite shows in the world. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the that actor Olivia something is in it for a scene, and is one of my favorite scenes, probably top 5 favorite scenes in all of TV ever. And it's just two people talking to each other, which is like, when you can make that shit interesting to me, like, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
So anytime I see her in something, I'm like, I love her. She's so cool. So Fury finds Gravik, and he's like standing in the super scroll chamber, and Fury looks like he's really sick, and he drops his pills, and Gravik's like, well, that sucks. It's too bad you're not a Skrull, because the radiation would be harmless to you.
Yeah, it's pretty nice being immune to radiation.
So here, have a drink. And he gives Fury his hip flask, and Fury's like, think fuck.
Gulps it down.
Yeah. He's like, well, look at the mighty Nick Fury. How far are you fallen? So Rhodey has started evacuating the president, right? And he tells the Secret Service, he's like, you see Fury, fucking kill him. He's a national security threat. But his men start getting hit by some kind of silenced projectile. A couple of them will fall over and their bodies are dragged into an empty room, right? So meanwhile, Gravik, like, is in the mood to monologue.
Yeah.
He is.
This is a good scene.
Yeah. He's like, well, your last 20 minutes alive and you're here with me. And he's like, just eat my ass, man. And he's like, tell me you have a backup plan. You got like Avengers on standby on speed dial. Someone's like, Thor's going to run in here and beat my ass with a hammer or something. And Gravik reveals that the face that he took, the human face that he took, was the first person that Fury ever ordered him to kill. And from the way he talks about it, isn't sure that he deserved to die and feels kind of bad about it.
Well, he says, like, he was maybe a little misguided, but he had a family. He had a wife and kids, and I took that from him because you told me to.
Yeah. And
so who's the real bad guy here, Fury?
Right. And I like how Fury's like,
God, we really doing this?
So he monologues about how many, like, people he killed and about how Fury failed them. And he's like, he goes on.
Where's our fucking home, Fury?
Right. And he goes on about how, like, Talos was weak, which gets this, like, particularly special glare from Fury, right? And so Gravik's like, okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill humanity, and it's going to be literally all your fault. You're going to die knowing that all this shit happened because you didn't keep your promise. And Fury's like, yeah, okay. I kind of dropped the ball on that. Like, I knew within a few years that we couldn't find a planet for you. My thought was, if I could do it, I could build you a home here. And Gravik's like, what the fuck, man? Why didn't you? Like,
yeah,
everything would have been fine.
Like, we had to do it ourselves because you were busy sitting on your ass.
Yeah, even if you told us that's what you were doing, like, this could have not happened. God damn it.
If you could just communicate a little bit, Nick Fury.
Why didn't you say something? And he's like, because humans are fucking terrible, and it's way easier to save 8 billion people than it is to change their stubborn fucking minds. And Gravik's like, yeah, I get that. Yeah. that's true. And he's like
his literal line is like, even for Nick Fury. And to me, like, a perfect line would have been especially for Nick Fury.
Yeah, that would have been.
Nick Fury's not a people person.
Yeah.
He is a shoot you and blow up your car person.
Which is what I love about it. We should be in the writer's room for these. I think we could do a good job. So Fury's like, then I got dusted. And it turns out, weirdly, the last thing I felt was a relief that I didn't have to put up with the human race anymore. I didn't have to save anyone. I didn't have to feel underappreciated. I just got to fucking sweet oblivion. Here I come. This
kind of sucks, but at least I don't have to exist anymore.
Right. So,
which is a very relatable thought.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially when you hit your 30s and you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. Especially the world that we live in. So, while Fury is talking... sorry. I had to read my notes. So, Fury and Gravik are talking. Meanwhile... Rhodey is trying to evacuate President, and his men just keep disappearing, right? It's like you turn a corner and it's like a guy is missing, and then you turn another corner and a guy is missing, right?
They turn back to the first guy, and now another guy is missing.
All the while, these scenes are cut with a voiceover from Fury. He was like, I came back for you because I felt responsible that I didn't teach you how to not be a little bitch and give up the fight. Anyway, here's what you want, Carol Danvers' DNA. Which, by the way, Theory confirms. I was sure, like, if you're going to get one Avengers fucking DNA, get Carol Danvers.
Well, the thing is, it's all of there.
Yeah, which is weird. Like, just putting like cocktail.
I don't know how
everything's,
that Gravik's like, wait, really?
Yeah, he's like, this seems really easy. And he's like, yeah, well, like, look, I'll give it to you. I want you to leave Earth. Go terrorize a different planet and its people.
Just get the fuck out of here.
I literally don't give a fuck. Go to any planet, anywhere, and just leave us alone. And Gravik's like, or I could just take it from you, super scroll myself, and continue with my master plan, you fucking idiot. And he takes the DNA from him, and he puts it in the sciencey machine, right? And he, like, loads something up. The only people left in the hospital now are Rhodey, the president, and one Secret Service agent with a broken arm. Fucking useless, right? And so... like, Rhodey tries to back them into a room and finds that he's at gunpoint and it's fucking Sonya Falsworth.
Yeah, he opens the door, like, looks around once, says, it's all clear, and then there's a gun pointed at the back of his head, and Sonya's like, you're a fucking idiot, aren't you?
You didn't check behind the door? Like, Americans are really just so fucking stupid.
No, what she says is, you are a Skrull,
you must be you must be a Skrull, right? And so she's like, get your ass back in the hallway. And so he, So Gravik activates the Super Skrull machine, and it goes off with him and Fury inside. And all of a sudden, Gravik is like tall and buff. It looks kind of hulky.
Yeah.
And Fury is still Fury, just standing there, which you would expect because he's human, right? So they pontificate.
Like, all right, I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah, it's time to die. Goes to punch him. Fucking Fury grabs fist in midair, one arm. And you're like, oh, shit. He's a Skrull.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. And Gravik realizes that it's not Nick Fury, it's Gaia. Now, because I like spycraft movies, I love the Mission Impossible movies, I knew that there was going to be one rip off the mask moment, right? Because it's just embedded in the genre. That's how it works, and it's that's what you come to expect. It's that promise thing we're talking about. When you make promises based on genre to your audience, you have to pay them off, right? He's like, oh shit, and Guy's like, you killed my parents, you called my dad a little bitch, now we're gonna have a fight.
My name is Gaia, whatever my last name is. You killed my parents. Prepare to die.
Yeah. At the hospital, the last remaining Secret Service agent hits the floor, and Fury appears in the hallway with a trank gun. And this poor guy, by the way, had his arm broken by Fury like a few days earlier, right? He's like, just leave me the fuck alone. I don't want this anymore.
So now it's the president on his gurney with a gun.
Yeah, and Rhodey, who is held at gunpoint, right? And Fury's like, look, Rhodey's a Skrull. If you don't call off your strike, you're going to kill the real Rhodey along with a bunch of real fucking smart humans. And he kind of explains what's going on. And he looks at Rhodey. He's like, that's true. Is that true? And he's like, no.
Of course it's not. He's
right.
a fucking idiot. What are you talking
I
about?
am surprised in this moment Sonya didn't just shoot him in the head. Just to prove a point.
See, I would have thought you shoot him in the arm or something. So that
you're talking about Sonya Fallsworth. I think she just would have shot him in the head.
She shot the SIS guy in the leg.
That's true. He wasn't a Skrull, though.
Yes, he was.
Oh, no. Yeah, he
SIS
was.
Head.
Yeah. So, Gravik and Super Gaia have a fight. And they're using arrays of different powers, right? And I kind of listed out. So, she uses the phasing in and out from Ghost, the Ghost from Ant-Man. I think Gravik does the Abomination thing. Gaia has Drax's arm at one point. Yep. And then also, another point has Korg's arm and a Frost Beast icicle thing.
Yeah.
And
at one point, fucking Gravik kicks her with a Hulk leg.
Yeah. They both have Captain Marvel powers.
I love this fight because they go through all these different powers, and then at some point they both realize, wait a minute, I have Carol Danvers powers. Yeah. Let's just fucking blast the shit out of you.
So Gravik does an Ebony Maw thing where he uses telekinesis to move some rocks around or some shit. And so they have this fight, and it's kind of a CGI mess.
Yeah. I thought it looked fine.
It was fine. It wasn't as bad as Moon Knight, right?
Yeah. At one point, Gaia uses Mantis's powers to.
Well, that's how she ends the fight, right? But they're right. You're exactly right. Where they're like, "Oh, I'm invincible." Right?
I have all these powers.
Yeah.
Let's just fucking.
And they're shooting Carol's plasma shit at each other, and then they're like, "Oh, right, we can fly."
Yeah.
And so they end up in the air.
They fly now. They fly now.
And so Gaia turns into Mantis and is like, and you're sleepy now. And he just dead weight falls to the ground. Right? At the hospital. So basically what happens is Gaia kills Gravik with Captain Marvel's plasma blast through the chest.
Fires a laser through his chest that could be seen from space.
Yeah. And he falls over and he's like, well, I'm dead now. Which, by the way, they should have explained this. I think this is one of the problems I have with this fight, is that the rules are not well explained.
Okay.
If Carol Danvers hits you with a plasma blast, you are fucking dead. Unless you're Thanos.
Yeah.
Because he's he's purple or whatever. If you're Carol Danvers and you get hit with a plasma blast, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because you're invincible.
You're just kind of fine.
You can throw a planet at Carol Danvers and she'll be fine. In fact, I think the only person we know that can beat Captain Marvel in the MCU is Infinity Stone fucking red guy. Jarvis. Or not Jarvis. He's got Jarvis's voice. The guy from Ultron. But Infinity War or Infinity Stone Ultron, right? With all the stones and shit, right? Literally the only an all powerful character. Literally the only person that can kill Carol Danvers, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, how are you able to kill him with Carol Danvers' power when he has Carol Danvers' power? Like, do you have to have it turned on? If you're using,
I think it's the Skrulls have to willingly call forth whatever.
Okay, and if you're concentrating on one like you can't use another one, or like
there are limits certainly, because like they for most of that they're only using like 2 at a time, like for one for each arm.
It would make more sense to me if they're like, yes, we have powers, but we don't have access to the full thing.
Okay, that would also work.
Because why would you?
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, Gravik literally gets lasered to death.
Yes.
Falls over and is like, okay, gonna go now. At the hospital, Fury just shoots Rhodey in the head. He's like, I'm done. I'm done talking about this. I'm done arguing whether or not we should bomb the Russians. Rhodey, you're a dick. See you later.
Well, what happens is that, like, at one point, Sonya's like, President, can you just fucking chill for like 2 minutes? Like, what do you lose by not bombing Russia immediately?
Which is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
He's like, you could go back and bomb them later.
Yeah.
Like, you're not taking away your ability to bomb them. It's just you're not doing it right now.
Fury's like, no, we need to bomb them right now. And Fury's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's so tight. Yeah, just you are not helping. Shot in the head. That poor Skrull lady.
Purple blood on the wall, falls over, turns into a Skrull.
You can tell, by the way, Nick, like the trank darts, I think, maybe they were all Skrulls though. But you could, like, because he was using trank darts on certain people, but like the Skrulls, you can shoot them in the head because they have purple blood and it doesn't look very real on TV.
Guess,
yeah. So anyway, kills Rhodey. The president looks over his bed, watches him turn into Skrull, and is like, "Get my phone, please."
So it's like, here, you can borrow mine.
Yeah, give him a phone. He's like, okay, we're not nuking Russia today. So that whole thing is averted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what ends up happening, all the captive humans are freed, including Rhodey.
Guy goes into the closet and starts freeing them all.
Right.
And
I saw one thing where there's another area with a bunch of humans that one of them looked like Evan Peters' character from WandaVision.
Okay.
And I saw the picture and I was like, that does kind of look like Evan Peters, but I'm not really sure if it is or not. So it's, yeah.
Okay.
So they, I like how they tease the audience a little bit and they're like, Rhodey's like, how the fuck long have I been out? And they're like, a long time. Mm-hmm. Not like right after Tony Stark's funeral or, you know. Yeah. Like, because I'm not sure they figured that out yet, because there are wide-reaching, you know, implications. Yeah. So Ritson gives an address, and because you really think, like, okay, everything's averted, he's going to be responsible.
He's going to like say, okay, Skrulls, we'll have a home for you.
Right, we'll figure it out. Fucking diplomacy. He gets on TV with this big fucking cut in his head, and he's like, I've had a bad day, and basically what's going to happen is we're declaring war on the Skrulls. I am over this bullshit. We know how to find out if they're Skrulls. If you're a Skrull, we will find you. We will kill you. God bless America. Goodbye.
Honestly, this is exactly the level of nuance and subtlety that I would expect out of an American politician.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
This is extremely true to life.
Yeah. Not exactly what Fury and Talos had.
It's not what anyone wanted.
Because remember, they had that one. They're like, we're going to go to the president.
Like, we're going to go to the president. We're going to save the world. They're going to thank us. They're going to give us a home. And guys like, you fucking idiot. Right. That's not going to happen. And who was right?
Yeah. So Nick Fury goes back home and he talks to Priscilla. And he's like, I'm leaving again. And he's like, basically the conversation is like, look, if you can find a way to forgive me, you know where to find me. Mm-hmm. And Fallsworth meets with Gaia. And she's like, I'm a friend of a friend of a friend.
Heard wonderful things about you. Why don't you come work for me?
Ritson is crazy because he's an American. And they've declared war on Skrulls. We need to work together and make Earth safe. And this isn't like your dad and Nick. We're not going to be friends.
We're not friends.
We'll use each other.
You're using me. I'm using you.
Right.
It's business. That's all this is.
Right. But we have a shared goal, so it'll all work out. And like you can, Gaia's like kind of comforted by that. She's like, I appreciate that you're being so candid about this. Yeah,
I can work with this.
She goes to shake her hand, and Guy's like, nah. And she's like, no, you're right. Only friends would do that. We're not friends. So Fury calls the president, and he's like, okay, I'm not a fan of your hateful ass speech. And while he's talking to him, there are scenes of Skrulls just getting like the one guy that's like the Sean Hannity type just gets mowed down.
Just mowed down in public. The Prime Minister of England just gets fucking murked while she's giving a speech.
Despite not being a Skrull.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's another shot of an attempted killing of a Skrull, and the Skrull just kills all the people trying to kill her.
Right. Yeah. So he's like like there are people out there killing humans who aren't even Skrulls and shit. It's a mess. And Ritson's like, nah, we're going to kill them all. Sorry, I'm an American politician. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle I'm from. We live for this shit. Like, this is what America is for. Fucking freedom, baby. And he's like, that sounds like the kind of shit a dumbass one-term president would say. Which, right then I was like, oh, yeah, because Harrison Ford is coming in as General Ross, who is going to be the president in the new Captain America movie. So Ritson will not be the president for very long. Maybe because Fury kills him.
No, they're getting the president from Air Force One to be the president.
Get off my plane. So Fury is about to return to Saber, his fucking pie in the sky. And his wife shows up. I like how he's like, hold on a second. She gets out of her car. They talk. Turns out that the Kree want to make peace with the Skrulls out of nowhere, which for me, I was like, why would you say this now?
I'm willing to bet this has something to do with Carol Danvers.
Right. It's to set up something. It's to set up the Marvels, right? I was like, this could have been an interesting, like a really interesting story thread throughout the entire story.
I mean, it might have only happened now.
Yeah. It just felt sudden and weird and out of nowhere. Because I had kind of forgotten the Kree existed, honestly. I thought that, like, I don't know, maybe Carol went back and killed all of them. So she decides to come with Nick.
Well, what he says is, I need your help. You're the best diplomat I know.
And she's like, that's true.
Yeah.
I am the best diplomat, you know.
She's like, all right, I'll help you get started. Like, I'll do the opening round of talks or whatever, but, like, I need to come back here and look after the Skrulls.
Yeah,
because God knows your people aren't.
Right. So she shifts into her Skrull form, and she wants to be called by her birth name. Because she's like, if people know Skrulls are here, what the fuck am I doing with Priscilla? Yeah. Like, here's my alien face. And he's like, I'm gonna fuck you so hard.
You are the most beautiful I've ever seen.
Fucking grabs her by the head and like,
they just start
sticks
making
his
the
tongue.
fuck
Yeah,
out.
it's just like they are like all over the place. They make out. The end.
Yes.
No post credit.
They get back on the shuttle and ride up into the sky, and that's it.
Right. And okay, so out of 10,
I'd give the show about an 8.
I would give it a 7.
Okay.
There are parts of it I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
The ending was really just the Kree thing out of nowhere right at the end. I was like, oh, okay, you're setting up another thing.
I don't mind that specific thing. I feel like the whole last episode was a little bit rushed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I had a feeling that's how it was going to be when I was like, oh yeah, the next episode's the last one, and it's probably only 30 minutes. And how are they possibly going to tie this up neatly? So anyway, we're going to join our buddies for some Battlefront. Probably talk some more about this and some other Star Wars shit. So join us then. Make sure you like